Sacrifice in literature has many faces. You may know of its simplest form, a character giving up their life to save someone else, a powerful moment, almost entirely dependent on your emotional connection towards them. The more time an author puts into that character, the bigger the payoff will be, the harder it will hurt to accept. Death isn't the only form of sacrifice, it's just the most well known. You can actually break it down into many subcategories and get similar results. For example, a character may sacrifice their own version of life to become something greater, a higher purpose, a bigger meaning, still alive but serving something else. You can have an alternative character sacrifice themselves to push another character further, forcing them to evolve. You could have a character sacrifice their own agency to aid a better future, even when all hope seems lost. What's important about these different faces is making sure their purpose is intentful from the beginning, by having a clear understanding of your own character's projection within the future. This means no half-baked slide in from nowhere, as we don't want to make these characters seem fickle. For example, changing their attitude on a dime because the story calls for it. So the longer we have the character's true sacrificial purposes envisioned, preferably from the beginning of their personal arc, the more their sacrificial moment will pay off. A character like Gojo Satoru is a great example of envisioned sacrifice from the very beginning. The earliest way this is done is by combining two key factors to simply elevate his character when compared to others. The first is recognizing that he is the strongest being in the world. The second is understanding that without him, the world will crumble. What this does is it sets up a very precise power structure with Gojo at the top and also its center. This means that the world indirectly rotates around him, as all power of any kind will be filtered through his control. From a faction perspective, this is great, as your strongest can stop everyone else from being stronger, which in turn gives your faction more control over the world. From a curse perspective, this is horrible, as you will never reach your full potential, which drives your hatred into the endless power wall that stands in front of you. While this may seem like a fine structure to uphold, it's made very clear it's not healthy, it's not safe, and incredibly toxic. Why is that, you may ask? Well, think about it like this. Imagine your building only has one support beam keeping it held together. If it cracks, breaks, or crumbles, the whole building comes down. The idea of having one support beam isn't healthy, so your best chance is to spread that support out to others. If one fails, the others can keep it held up. Now this is all established very early on, which is great for his character, as we want clarity of the role he will play. This also means his sacrifice is that of one's freedom, as Gojo plays such an important foundation to the world of JJK. His own choices have no sway over his intended role. He has to play that pillar. He has to be this structure. Without him, the world ceases to exist. Nothing emphasizes this more than two things: his ceiling and eventual death, as in real time we can watch the world crumble around his disappearance. Now these are incredibly important moments, and are handled with such care to prepare you for that shift. Gojo's ceiling is like a test run to show you a slight version of what the world would be like without him at the top, without fully committing to his death. In hindsight, this is used perfectly to enhance his second death, but this time it's less apologetic, and some notable things have changed. After his ceiling, people had grown, had stepped up into his shoes as best as possible. It's not perfect, but it has to be done. In a way, Gojo's death feels cathartic, as he's fought so hard for so long, and even though he couldn't win in the end, he left the world ready for his absence. A freedom he deserved from day one, he now has, as his students form a brand new strength together within his shoes, sharing that burden of power and becoming a stronger foundation for the future. A lot of powerful characters share a similar fate. It's a way to balance their overwhelming strength naturally within the story. Sure, they could handle everything, fight everyone, and stomp out any problems, but this doesn't help them long term. Eventually, they will fall with time, or crack under the immense pressure of that burden. The more you take out their humanity, and only view them as necessary machines, the quicker they can crash and burn into themselves. What was once your strongest weapon could easily turn into your scariest enemy. An alternative version of this is Maki and Mai. They come from a long bloodlined household that's trying to create powerful sorcerers. If they aren't good enough within the eyes of elders, they get thrown to the side. Within the Zenin family, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and young children have it the worst. Maki has no special abilities, yet she's determined to become something greater against the face of her own family. Mai is a sister that was left behind, and this created a turbulent connection between them. Now it's important to emphasize their relationship, as it eventually will serve as the catalyst to bring them together and the ultimate sacrifice. This is done by bridging their relationship together quite often and bringing it back to the reader to understand. The more you become connected to this relationship, in turn, the better that emotional sacrifice will be. It's also important to note that they share a common enemy, being their family. Even though they walked two different paths, the deeper reasoning behind their separation is that of trauma, freedom, and blood. This would culminate in what I call the give and take sacrifice within the guise of twins. You see, twins within the JJK world are considered one person. So Mai had cursed energy and a CT, while Maki had none of it. The sacrifice would merge these two together, making them whole, but at the cost of Mai's life. This plays as a touching goodbye between two sisters as they lay there on the brink of death. But this sacrifice of life, the give and take, would birth something new, a power, a monster. This type of sacrifice works great to emotionally charge the other individual, but can also welcome it as a burden. The words "destroy everything" would be imprinted into Maki's core as she goes on a rampage to annihilate her entire family clan. It serves as an incredibly powerful moment propelled through sacrificial means, as the treatment, trauma, and loss of one sister now births their own destruction. It directly shows just how wrong the family was, how horribly misguided and misogynistic their design was at a fault. Some of the best moments within stories come at that sacrificial loss, the give and take system. It's emotionally compelling and has such an impactful driving force for any character it's imposed on. It's better to use sparingly though, as the more often you try to do it, the less impact it will have. Considering its effect is pushed through a two-character connection and your personal connection to them, trivializing that emotion will kill any tension and evolution you hope to gain. In a similar way, one's loss of freedom can only be used so often depending on how the story calls for it. I call this the two-body problem. Take two individuals, mash them into the same body. One sacrificing their freedom and agency, the other locked in with immense power and destruction. This isn't new. For many years, different characters have used this two-body system for main characters. It provides balance, interesting perspectives, double character growth, and even power benefits. You have to be careful though, as it's easy to lose sight of what makes your sacrificial character so great. If your intruder or insider has too much control, they can make things convenient, weightless, and over-welcoming. Yuji and Sukuna are a great example of good balancing. On one hand, Yuji has to sacrifice his normal life, body, and agency to become a dying vessel with no future. This is emphasized more by knowing he's the only one that can do it. On the other hand, Sukuna is a master manipulator that threatens the safety of the whole world, but is severely weakened and managed by Yuji's inner strength. It's important to note that they do not see eye to eye. Sukuna is not someone you can just bargain with, as every discussion falls into his favor. So instead, a brute force method is utilized to acquire all of Sukuna and kill Yuji as his vessel. As a plan, this sounds nice, but actually horribly underestimates the intelligent power and flexibility of Sukuna's history. Let me give you an example. Sukuna has been alive for 1,000 years. He's basically immortal from what we know. The plan to put all his power inside another person has not practically been tested. So, the fate of the world relies on a gamble. And just through time and experience alone, my money would be on Sukuna escaping or living 99% of the time. So it raises a question. How do you keep someone so powerful out of the spotlight? Well, in JJK's case, you make Sukuna play the long game. Not 5 fingers, not 15, but almost entirely complete. All while he's constantly observing every modern day sorcerer and curse Yuji encounters. This creates the worst situation, as Yuji really has no say, want, or perspective that can help aid him further. He's a ticking time bomb, being used throughout the narrative for Sukuna to take over and put pressure in places. For a long time, Yuji tried to fight back against this ideal, not physically, but mentally and emotionally, not truly understanding the situation at large. But a great thing about him is his willingness to adapt and evolve within confined spaces. This makes Yuji one of the most flexible characters in the long run, all while not really having any abilities or powers of his own. In a way, you can view him as a soldier, evolving in different battlefields and learning from past mistakes. Emotionally, he's grown to accept and excel against all odds, understanding the bigger picture his sacrificial role actually plays. A genuine level of self-awareness carved through blood, pain, and trauma. Yuji Itadori is a character born of the JJK world, a body ready to adapt, a mind continuing to evolve. The fight that he faces currently will be the biggest jump you'll see from his character, one that shows his true nature, his true emotions, carved by his surroundings to become something else entirely all on his own, an absolute monster the world made him to be. Hello, thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, I'd very much appreciate it. Also, check out some of these videos here. The more you watch, the more YouTube recommends me, and that directly supports me, and you may enjoy the video. And with that, I will see you all later.